We are gonna start in a couple of like a 3:03. ¿Vale? ¿Se me oye? Sí, o sea, estaba en mute, pero no estaba hablando. Simplemente eso, comentar que empezamos en un minuto. ¿Me oís bien, no? Vale, perfecto. Ahí visto un sí. Así que genial. Arrancamos eso, 3:03. All right. So here we are for the second webinar. I guess like some more people will keep connecting right after. But let's get started to make the most of our time. Actually, today it wouldn't surprise me if it were a little long and we extend a little more than 1 hour. But well, let's try to keep it to its time. So last week we were reviewing how to prepare a business plan for a startup in 1 hour. That is one of the two main documents that you need to provide. But actually, the main one is the pitch deck. So this presentation that is usually, well, as we will see now, 10, 15 pages long, describing your startup. So today we're going to cover this second part, the pitch deck, and hopefully to give you insights on how to apply it to your own startups or how to read them if you are like more on the investor side. So, well, hopefully, let's hold on 1 second. Let me share my screen. Now, okay, now I guess you guys can see my screen. So, yeah, so we will talk first, like some introduction. Again, if you can hear for the first webinar, you already know, but just in case. And then we are gonna cover like relatively quick general advice on how to prepare like the deck and like general comments about the deck or like ideas that you need to have, like what prepare the pitch deck. And then afterwards, we're going to go in detail, one by one, through all the sections that it must contain. So like business model, product, problem, solution, team, and all of that stuff, giving best practices in each of them. And again, we are not that many, so feel free to directly like unmute yourselves or like write questions in the chat, whatever you guys prefer. And but yeah, like just in case at the end we have like, or hopefully we will have like 5 more minutes to ask any question. Tell me a story that you guys have, or like ask that we have seen, examples or whatever. So first of all, on the introductions, I'm Jaime. I studied physics between Madrid and Boston. Then actually I started a PhD in New York. If I say that I started it, is because I never finished it. And then I moved back to, well, not back, I moved to the corporate world. So I worked as a consultant in McKinsey for almost 2 years. And then is when I moved to startups and already in the finance department. So I started working at OnTrack and JobLink, which are 2 startups from Madrid. And little by little, like some of my friends or former colleagues started asking me, like, can you lend me a hand with, preparing the business plan for like that I need for the next funding round, or like, my investors asked me for reporting and and I have no idea how to do it, projects like that as freelance. So I started working as a freelance with many startups simultaneously, and at some point I decided to try to scale the model, and I founded the Startup CFO. So what do we do in the Startup CFO? Our main business line is to offer fractional CFO services for early stage startups. So usually a startup that has raised less than, I don't know, 10, 15 million, they do not need a full-time experienced guy as CFO in the company, but rather like they need someone senior to take care of important stuff when they do need it. Like, for example, again, for fundraising, reporting or whatever. But they don't need a full-time role. It would be too expensive, and it's not worth it. So that's where we come in. We also offer services like for preparing funding rounds for very early stage startups, usually like for their very first round, and some other related services. We have already worked as CFOs with over 75 early stage startups. In total, including other business lines, we have worked with over 180 startups. And we recently opened our first international office in Berlin. We see that Berlin is a super attractive ecosystem, especially for early stage startups. And we already had some clients there. So we decided to hire a country manager there that is actually connected, Ian, and to establish more business in Berlin. So far, it's been pretty successful. We are meeting like many VC funds. We're getting many leads and new clients signed. So hopefully, we will keep opening like more international offices in the future. I'll also put a link to our YouTube channel, where we have like a lot of information about what we do, and also like previous webinars that we have given, like last week's. And also in this link that you probably used to come here is the content.tscfo.com/finance course. Is where you can see like this series of 8 webinars that today we're in the number 2 that we'll be covering every Thursday at this time on topics related to startup finance. So why this webinar? This is like a typical statistics that is a killer argument to why this webinar is necessary. By the way, Rocío just shared the link to the webinar series. Please, like, if you think it can be interesting to other startups, please share it as much as you want. And therefore, like in the coming webinars, we can be like more people connected and more enriching for everyone. So why did we decide to do this webinar? VCs spend an average of 3 minutes and 44 seconds on each business pitch deck. They receive literally tens or hundreds per day in many of them. So they can only spend very little time on this first touch and decide whether to have a call or not with the entrepreneur. So therefore, if they're going to spend only less than 4 minutes, it is key to communicate well. And many of them like already expect a structure, and they already want to know like, where to find what they are looking for. If they are looking for the market, there's a slide on the market. If they are looking for like a technology, that they find it for the team, whatever. And they usually like want to know where they can find it. You need to take the most of these 3 minutes and 44 seconds that are going to spend in your startup. It is also key for the CEO himself to analyze all the key areas of the business, the same way that the investors want to look to. We will see it around 10 different sections because they are very important. The CEO should like really know about them because they are really important as well. And in this, like we have a lot of demand, as I was saying before, like we help many startups like with their first funding rounds and with these materials. So we see like there is a lot of market demand, and by the way, we can help you. So I'll remind it afterwards as well. But if you want us to share with you this presentation, or you want our help for to create a pitch deck, feel free to write to me, Jaime@tscfo.com, and we will help. So at the beginning, general advice on pitch deck that is still not going like section by section. Again, by the way, Rocío shared my email address on the chat. So first of all, a huge and very important disclaimer. I'm going to speak about very, very general ideas, and you will see that, I will say like these are the best practices, and then I show examples, and not many times, and very often they will not match. there are like actually more counter examples than examples probably. But this comes because there are different styles, or different phases of the startup in which you need to focus on different things. It's totally fine. So even if I say like, sentences like, unless I really stress it of like, this is recommended or whatever, don't take it too seriously. But it is true that in our opinion, it's a set of good practices that we have seen them work in time. So not necessarily like in the same line, not necessarily to comply with everything we say, like to the letter, but rather like be natural. If you think you need a couple of slides on something rather than one, it's fine. Visuals matter, but more or less depending on the project, which means that if you are like want to sell a tool for marketing and PR and stuff, definitely visuals will really matter and you should spend time on it. If you want to do some B2B business that is deep tech and stuff, don't worry that much. Try to make it beautiful, but it doesn't need to be like absolutely amazing. And by the way, always in line of the disclaimer, besides anything we say that is best practice or not, always follow the feedback that real investors are giving you. So like if an investor tells you, I don't understand this slide, it's because that slide should change, especially if two of them tell you. If you follow like everything to the letter, but still they say, change it, because that's like what you should really hear. In the same line in your startup, you should always listen to the market. Now you're selling literally a piece of your startup, and you should listen to the market, the potential investors. So on document structure, order matters. Again, investors want to know where they can find things. So they are used to the fact that usually the problem and the solution are at the very beginning, that the market is more or less in the middle, that the team is more or less in the end. Again, exceptions, but order matters. So like, especially at the beginning, go straight to the point, like this is the problem in the market, this is the solution I propose. Size matters, like always. And therefore, like ideally, in this case, 1 page per idea. The shorter, the better. If an investor opens a PDF that has already like 60 pages, it's very likely that he's not even going to dedicate 3 minutes and 44 seconds. He's going to say like, hey, I'm not going to get anything, or this is boring. Well, again, think that the investor is a human and with normal emotions. So if they feel that it's going to be like too much and they have other like 20 decks to read, they're not going to spend much time. So the shorter the better, although of course it needs to be complete. Something very important, you need to take into account if it's a document that is going to be read or to be presented. Many times we recommend to have separate versions. In fact, you should create specific versions adapted to the type of investor. So it is very tempting, because you guys will be very busy, that like a single deck can be sent to anyone. But if you know that this VC fund has like a specific investment thesis on whatever, I would stress that whatever, for example. I'm getting back to the point of, is it a document to be read or to be presented? More text if it's going to be read, less text if it's going to be presented. There's also another difference that we will see later. Always in English. This is crucial. Even if you are a German pitching to German investors, obviously then the delivery will be in German, but the document should always be in English, because that guy in that VC fund is going to forward it to many other people, and all of them work in English, and some of them will not speak German in that example. And obviously, and this sounds obvious, but like many people don't really follow it, is brag about your strengths and defend from your weaknesses. So if you have terrible unit economics, well, first of all, think if it's the moment to raise a funding round. And second, don't like have a whole slide showing that your LTV CAC is 1.3. And the other way around, if your cohort analysis, for example, shows real strength, please like put it somewhere in the slides. Every single startup has strengths and weaknesses. The thing is like, it needs to be very obvious what your strengths are. And for your weaknesses, you should know them and be prepared. If anyone asks us about our business model in the Startup CFO, well, if we were a startup raising funds, my weakness would be, obviously, we're not a technological company, scalability may be an issue. and I have answers for that, but I have them like ready. So you should be already very ready, like to defend your weaknesses. Again, by the way, feel free to stop me at any time. Maybe it makes more sense in the section by section. Getting one level deeper, page structure. We recommend to, this comes like from consultants, like big consulting firms always work like this, to have like action titles in the presentation, which is a complete sentence with an action, with a verb on it. So for example, it's not the same to say market than the market we are addressing is 300 million and growing at a 7% rate. The first one is just the description. So ideally, your action titles is like much more powerful, and they should be considered like the takeaway of the slide. The slide proves that, and the takeaway is the title. If ideally you would be able to read the whole document just by reading the action titles, like a story. That's crucial for someone that is going to spend like so little time. They get the messages like in very big letters and like one after the other. That's super useful. It is true that it's also useful to label the slides to indicate which section we're talking about. We'll see it later with examples. But here, for example, if this were a pitch deck, that of course it's not. Maybe I would say here like structure, and then have like here the most important takeaway. We will see later. Also, by the way, attention to detail. This is very important. Uniformity. If like you have like several slides with bullets that they're all aligned and stuff like that. Parallel messages. If you have like 3 bullets and all of them, and 2 of them start with a verb and the other one with a noun, that's weird. It's better like, or 3 adjectives: scalable, informal, whatever, like good, any adjective, but not like informal, scalable, and then like I don't know, and then like we also do whatever. So these parallel messages is also like very powerful. And for example, watch out for spelling mistakes. For someone that is telling me to give them millions, that they haven't reviewed enough their pitch deck and there are spelling mistakes, it's a tiny thing, but like, those tiny things add up. Also, it's very common to have like a common structure in slides of like having a central outline, pictures, a diagram here with arrows, big numbers, whatever, and then imagine a paragraph in the right side with like with a strong point. That again, we will see many examples. There's also a magic number, and this comes like from actually like big consulting firms again. For example, in McKinsey, everything is in 3s, if possible, all messages. So it's better to write like 3 bullets on something, or to split the problem and the solution in 3 verbs, or 3 situations, or 3 use cases, or whatever, than 2 or 4. Don't get too crazy about this, of course. If you have like 4 use cases, write the 4 of them. But if you're going to write like 3 bullets to describe each, it's better that if it's 3 than if it's other number. I know it sounds crazy, but again, it's like psychological ways in which our messages are more compelling. Also, if you're going to write paragraphs, that it's needed, by the way, better for them to be short and with random bolding. And random bolding is the ironic name of this kind of bolding that I'm doing here. Like a word or a couple of words that like make you like follow the text easy. And by the way, let your presentation breathe. Don't try to add text and everything absolutely everywhere. And this is very important, this the second part of the sentence. Your text should be explanatory, but it will never be exhaustive. So we see many people, and we will see, for example, in business model or in market, that people try to cover absolutely every idea they have had in relation to the business. And that's not the point at all. It should be like the opposite, to the point, to the main message. This is like for your first call, then you will have many more. So better to be like an easy message, like to the point, than a more complicated, exhaustive message. This is super important. So now let's get to the chase and let's go section by section. So every business deck starts with a cover, obviously. So the key thing here is keep it simple. If you want to make it like beautiful, all right, and it may be useful depending on the product or on the positioning that you want to have. For example, if your main claim is that you are gonna create an ERP, for example, like hold it SAP, whatever, but incredibly simple, maybe your cover should be something like in one color, easy, like just the name of your company, and that's it. If you are claiming that you are doing, again, something in marketing, something related to advertisement or whatever, make it more complicated. And usually it should just say like investors deck and date. The problem to say the date is very important because you want to keep track of your own persons, is that it's very easy to forget it. So watch out if you write the date to keep track of it. And now I want to show you two examples. Like for every section, I have chosen two examples. One of a famous startup or like a pretty big name, and another one for from a client of us. So, for example, LinkedIn, Series B, August 2004. That's it. Confidential, fine. But that's it. That was as simple as it was. Actually, it's very funny to see. We're going to see more examples of like very famous startups when they were at the very beginning. Many of them, you are going to be surprised at how simple they were. And that's why I claim that the visuals don't matter that much. But, for example, this is a client of us, Oko. Oko's mission is like to go back to the bars to meet and date people. So they do offline events. It's more or less like an offline Tinder. Okay, you're saying no, offline Tinder, the red, the complication. It's like an attractive cover. This makes a lot of sense. Investor deck, the date, and in this case, like some slogan here. Okay. Yeah, I see a question in the chat, actually directed to me, but it's important information for everyone. They say, unfortunately, I held up in a meeting. I see you're recording the presentation. Will it be available afterwards? Yes, it's going to be available in our YouTube channel and also in the webinar series landing page. It's going to be available. Actually, if you click on it now, the link that Rocio sent before, you can already see the webinar from last week. So yes, don't worry, we will have it. And again, we can also send you the slides and help you in it. So the cover, obviously, relatively simple. The executive summary is something that we consider not essential. So it should, like, if you add it, it just needs to be like, what does the company do? Why is it 10 times better than the competition? And how big is the opportunity? As simple as that. Some people add more stuff. Maybe like an executive summary, they try to summarize the most important key messages from the presentation. That's fine as well. Again, it's not an essential slide, but if you're gonna use it, in my opinion, use it for like making a very strong message. That is very clear what you guys do. It is very clear that was needed in the market and it's way better than any other alternative, and that you're talking about a very big market. This, by the way, in Sequoia, for example, Sequoia, which is like the first and best VC fund, I think, in my opinion, and they focus a lot on like their mantra is target big markets, for example. So it's great if you already mentioned. So, for example, with Oko, the same example than before. What is the concept? Weekly offline dating events, 50-50, AI-enabled group making. What's the potential? We have a huge community, ample experience, and we are using good technology and stuff. And that is much better than the other alternatives. And opportunity size, global online dating is huge, for example. And in this case, it's like two of our clients. So Beston, for example, is like the opposite. They did more or less like the opposite. They do claim like important things about the company here, and they are already informed of the fundraising that they're doing and already like some key metrics. Again, something that like really lets you understand product and that it's going well. Now, like we are like getting. We're increasing complexity. The problem, this one is a very important slide, and actually the action title should be very, very, very powerful. If you want to claim something like, I'm making it up, like every day 500 tons of plastic are being dumped in the ocean. Like a huge problem up there. Or like, again, companies waste like 25% of their time in hiring. I don't know, whatever. But something that is like, all right, there's something here. Something, by the way, that many times the investor, if possible, can relate to. So this is like many times, like when we help our clients, we spend a lot of time thinking of like this action title and what exactly is what we want to solve and how compelling can we make this sentence. It should be a real problem. This is more important than it seems. It should be a real problem that affect the client or the user of the product. For example, in the example I just said of like the plastic, it may, then obviously I made up completely like that statement. And it may be something like, it is terrible, but like your client doesn't necessarily care about that, or doesn't necessarily be willing to pay, isn't necessarily willing to pay for that. So it should be like completely addressed to your potential clients or users. Something that usually works is the conclusion as the action title, supported by 3 different arguments. We will see this now. And better if they are also supported by data. It's not the same to say hiring is a very manual process than to say, again, hiring managers waste 67% of their time in manual tasks, for example. So the more numbers and the more data, the better, and including their sources. Where does that 67% come from? Much better if you took it from somewhere, if you just made it up or it's your own conclusion. So again, this slide is very important, especially the title, and you can do it like better or worse. So for example, this is YouTube. Again, you are gonna see the visuals of the big companies back in the day. It's funny how like simple it was. Problem: video files are too large to email. Video files are too large to host. No standardization of video file formats. Videos exist as isolated files. This is something that the investor can like understand pretty quickly. And again, I mean, if they were our clients, probably would have told them like, video management is like blah, blah, blah. And here we prefer to say like, video files are usually like 25 times bigger than what an email can host, and making it. Well, there are more than 30 video file formats in the market, which make it impossible to whatever and stuff like that. And this is, for example, in on-track. Road freight today is fragmented, a headache, and non-transparent. Again, like the 3 messages, it works like very, very well. So now we have to answer to that problem and to find the solution. So ideally, and this again goes like with the parallel messages, ideally, you answer each problem or each part of the problem with one functionality. So, the road freight transport is fragmented. I'm going to make it, like a unitary. It's a headache. I'm going to make it simple. It's not transparent. I'm going to make it transparent. And with different parts of your product, or like the different functionalities that you could keep together. It should be more conceptual than exhaustive. Like, again, if you wanted to write like your whole solution in one slide, is your whole product. And we are not there yet. We will describe our product later. But this should be like very, very conceptual. Like, they have this problem. The video file problem is like, okay, they have a website with servers that they can host video and everyone can upload it. But then obviously YouTube is more complicated, and we'll see how they monetize. But if you can like add some numbers, that's better. We reduce hiring managers' time in 90%. Is like way stronger than say like we reduce it. If you have data, if it applies to that particular situation. So for example, solution in YouTube, consumers upload them, YouTube takes care of that, videos encoding backend converts, and user provides a community that comes. So for example, if you realize there were 4 points back there, but like this goes like to the formats, this goes to the isolated files, and this goes to the very first 2 points. So the more parallel, the better. And also, like for on track, for example, again, integrated, simple and powerful, transparent, which communicate with the previous slide. So you realize you show here, and we will see this in the competitor analysis, like what your strong points are, what your unique selling points are. And the product now is like more complicated and more like particular from startup to startup, which is how I fix it. How do I fix this particular problem? How do I achieve that solution I just mentioned? So this one ideally should be very visual. And actually we're going to see pretty extreme example of it. A picture is worth more than 1,000 words. Like rookie mistake, for example, is to think that the potential investor knows as much as the product as you do. And obviously no one knows more than you do, and the individual investor knows nothing about your product. So many people is like, no, we solved this, we have this problem, but like, now it's like the whole industry is integrated and blah, blah, blah. And then the investor is dying to see how that's achieved. Dying to see, like, is it an online portal? Is it a marketplace? Is it a SaaS solution? It's an app? And the entrepreneur may keep talking about it, but he hasn't said like, yes, look, it's a tool that looks like this, and it has like these different functionalities. Also, this is crucial. Main product. Clarity over completeness. And we will mention this as well with the business model and the market. Again, your product, I'm sure that can do 15 things, and there are like many interesting posts online, by the way, how it's explaining how new functionalities don't necessarily create like new customers, but the opposite, because it can get like a very complex product. And again, you have 3 minutes and 44 seconds. So you better show them like a very simple idea. And maybe there are other functionalities that you can name, or that you can wait until the having the call with the investor. But to write absolutely everything exhaustively, it gets you less likely of getting contacted by the visitor. If it's a complex product, ideally show the customer journey. Okay, the client registers here, then looks up in our marketplace whatever solution they have, then they send a quote, then they send the product wherever. I'm making a big example, but it shows like very clearly, and again, the investor can relate to it. I can imagine themselves doing that, even if it's not a B2C, but they can understand it already. And depending on how complex your technology is, you can already explain it in this slide, or add a separate slide. If you are achieving, ChatGPT, for example, like to name a very like an example that probably everyone here has used or has seen, they would have product, the interface, and then in technology, I guess they probably can talk for 1 million slides if they want. So that would be, of course, a case in which we would tell them like to split product and technology, of course. Here, very visual example of this is Shopify, actually. Yeah. So when we have said like the problem, people that don't have any tool if they want to launch their own e-commerce. There are many people that like sell things offline, but they cannot make the jump to online. Paperwork and operations, it costs businesses 20% of the margin, making it. You set the solution. We're going to do a platform for everyone. It's going to be simple. The integration will take only 3 minutes. And then still, you need this. How do you fix that problem? How do you get to that solution? Okay, this very visual. A single, simple to use back office, partner channels, everything integrated. And at least you already have like, a website to relate to and some branding. And this is a client of us, as you can see, very, very similar. This is Human IT Care. And they have an API-based solution that creates diagnostic that communicates with the hospital and stuff. And, they already told you that we don't invest enough on preventive healthcare. and like people don't monitor themselves well at home, we have a solution for that that looks like this. You already know that it's an app, desktop portal for the doctor, based on our system, real-time data analysis and stuff. Again, this is not exhaustive, actually, because I know this client, but this is like the main selling points that you need to understand. And now, again, stop me if whenever you want. The business model. The business model is actually how you are planning on making money from it. It is not the same that you are a SaaS business that like pays a fixed amount per month. It is not it's not the same than a API, that you charge by API call. It's not the same that you charge an onboarding fee or not, if it's a one-off or not, anything like that. So in terms of business model, people usually like tend to delay it in the presentation or even like not explain it at all. And it is crucial, And by the way, many funds, for example, are agnostic in industry. So they don't mind investing in clean tech or B2B or in, whatever, or in like a mobility or anything. But they do care about the business model. For example, some businesses, some VC funds only invest in B2B SaaS, for example. So here you need a slide to explain it. And it should be very simple, but probably it will take you a time to build it because it needs to be very precise as well. Simple outline, don't complicate it. Like, arrows, circles, very simple. And they should be ideally numbers that the investors can relate with. So for example, if you tell them directly, we are planning on having revenues of like 1 million euros with subscriptions, they cannot like relate that much, like, is it a lot or not? But if you tell them like 5 euros per month or like even or whatever figure that it is, like for a single client, it's way easier that they can relate with it and also compare it with other startups in their portfolio. If you are going to charge 5,000 per month, they're going to say like, well, it's expensive ticket. Then they will compare it to the other SaaS that they invested in that it's 5,000 euros per month, for example. But they should like be able to relate it. Actually, I think here I put the example, not yet, of Airbnb. Airbnb, I love their pitch deck, by the way, when they raised the seed round. You can find it online. It's, in my opinion, it's one of the best, like for simplicity and compelling. So, and in that one, they say like, a trip of 3 nights on average, they pay $80 per night on average, and we keep 10%, something like that. And it's like one number times the other equals times per trip. Also, again, iceberg approach in relation to the same that we were saying before. I'm sure that you have other ways to monetize your solution. In fact, most startups come to us saying that they, at some point, they will monetize their data. But actually, you need a lot of data for that, and it will probably always be a secondary business line. So I wouldn't even mention it. Maybe to mention like future business line data, etc. Maybe I would mention it when presenting it, but like think of it as like, we have this business model that it's already compelling, and by the way, we would have like many other ways of getting revenue. Many times, like I will target another market or stuff like that. But focus on one message, one market, one business model. And this is very important depending on your business. Also, what unit economics do you want to replicate? If you claim, for example, that you're going to open a delivery hero in a city, maybe you claim like, in a city, I can get to a stable point in which we have, making it up, 1 million margin coming from each city. So I would specify that, and I will make sure that in this slide, it is very clear how I'm going to make 1 million per city, because then the investor can say like, well, there are many cities in which you can open it. So like the startup, and this we will cover it in the Lean Startup webinar. The startups are based on unit economics, and the most important thing is what are your unit economics? If they are positive, I'm going to invest a ton of money such that you can replicate it afterwards. And so therefore, let's be very clear in what unit economics we want to replicate. It can be by client, it can be by city, it can be by object. For example, in the car sharing and motor sharing apps, it can be anything, but explain them in the business deck. So here, for example, this is Buffer. Buffer, by the way, it's an incredibly interesting case for like in which the founders bought out their investors, their VC investors after a while. It's a very, very interesting example from the finance point of view. They explain here, freemium model with consistent 2% conversion, 5% churn, we will get $240 per client. And 1 million users, then it will be 3.6 million. It's like, okay, if we, of course, we have already seen like what they do in the previous slide. If we had 1 million users, then it's 3.6 million revenue. Because of, and you already see average ticket, comparison churn, very easy to follow, very simple. They have other ways to monetize, by the way. They didn't explain it to us now because they want to keep simplicity. And this is one of our clients' spaces that, like they said, event management plus you can add 3 other functionalities, and in each of them, it's either setup fee, is percentage take rate, is X amount. So also like pretty easy to explain. And in product, we have already explained these functionalities. In terms of markets, this is always tricky. So technically, the definition of what your market is what is the total billing in the geography that you're considering for the same concept that you're going to sell. So for example, if you are like, well, we will see actually Airbnb soon. It's like for trips, for traveling, how much do people pay for lodging? Not just like traveling in general, for lodging, because that's what I will be selling. And it is very difficult to define, and especially it's very difficult to define well. It's easy to like look it up online and put like the first figure, but it's difficult to define like, is it really my market or not? And many times, of course, you cannot just like simply add the total billing for the same concept. Also, by the way, I'm like jumping here, many times your investment thesis is on disruption, not in size. So for example, the delivery market, like Delivery Hero and Gorillas and all that stuff, literally didn't exist some years ago, and now it's huge. So if you're one of the first movers, you cannot claim that the market is very big. You can claim that it will be very big. So for this is, if your thesis is of a big market, I'm gonna jump in ERP market, and ERP market is probably billions and billions per year. That's a good argument. Like if I get only 1% of that market, we're gonna make a lot of money. Or you can do like disruptive. This software doesn't exist, but there are so many companies that would be interested. If only X% of them paid this amount, we would be rich. So you need to be very sure of like what your thesis is, big or disruptive market. What do we call big? Good point. Virtually infinite for the amount of investment that you need. So it's not the same to say I'm gonna create a software for veterinaries that work on fish, that it's a smaller market, than to say an ERP that every single company needs, for example. I see a question, by the way, from Hector. Let me finish the description, and before saying examples, I will reply to you. So there are 3 different markets to define. The TAM, total available market. As we will see, for example, in Airbnb, trips booked worldwide in lodging, meaning. SAM, targeted segment of the TAM, is serviceable available market. Airbnb doesn't focus on business trips, for example, or they don't focus on luxury trips. They focus on budget, essentially, like cheap trips. And that market is not as big as the total traveling market, as the total like a hotel and motel and stuff. And the serviceable obtainable market is the portion of the previous one that you think you can capture. I can capture 5% of it. And if I ever did, then the multiplication is like this rate. We will see an example now. But also, by the way, you should explain many times in a different slide the go-to-market strategy. It's not the same like I'm gonna just put ads on Facebook that I need a sales team that will get like this many leads per month that they're gonna convert this way and so on. By the way, if we already have clients and big clients, obviously add them somewhere, add them in the go-to-market strategy. Although, and this is very tricky, we see many startups that are very early stage with tiny revenues that they claim they have like the biggest players in the market, they are their clients. And for me, these are two things. First of all, if that's true, then you don't have like that much potential to grow your revenue. You know, you're already like with the biggest players. If you acquire all those three players, you would be making 100,000 a year in revenue. Doesn't make much sense. Or if it's true, you are in trouble. You will never grow enough. And many times it tells me like, you're putting big names here because you want to talk to them, but they are not truly your clients. Or you did a tiny thing, not the thing that you're claiming in the product and the solution. So watch out with the big names. They need to be really true and defendable. So Hector said, you said that the order of the slides is crucial. I have seen many times that the market slide is between the problem and the solution or right after the solution. It is true. So the order, I mean, for some of them is way more important than for other slides. For example, problem and solution should really be at the beginning, and many times we don't see that. Maybe people start describing like the technology or whatever, and I'm still like, but who are you chasing with this? The market, I understand. Actually, for example, with one client, exceptionally, the solution, we called it opportunity. And like part of our claim was, you know, like in that client, I think it made sense that we fit there like, you know, there's a huge opportunity here. Our storytelling was like, there's a problem and there's an opportunity. So I don't think it's like a mortal sin if you put the market like so at the beginning. I'd rather jump from the solution to the product directly. But I don't consider mortal sin if you don't if you put it like sooner in the presentation. So for example, market size for Airbnb, and they actually make it in trips, actually, not even in euros. They have a coming slides in which they do it in euros. So they could have combined them probably. Sorry, in dollars actually. So 2 billion trips is the trips that are booked worldwide. 560 million of them are like a quarter of it budget and online. So like, you know what Airbnb chases, and they think they can get 15% of that, 84 million trips. In the next slide, they do 15 million trips times 3 nights times each dollar, whatever amount of dollars per night times the percentage you are keeping is, I think it's 2 billion or something like that, or even more. So it's pretty compelling. Like, all right, you're targeting a huge market. Even if you get a small share, you will have like incredible revenues. It's a good message. This is for one of our clients that like they do like specifically Web3 games, but their total industry, if at some point they wanted to expand in the far future, they would expand to the total gaming industry. And from like the Web3 games, we expect to get X market share. So this is like they use like their own numbers also to build it. It's not one of these cases in which the market is already huge, but they use their own numbers for the Web3 games. For the competitor analysis, I'm sure you have probably seen like 2 types. If you have already seen desks, decks, you have probably seen many of them that are like 2 axes that we will see soon, or in a matrix. What does the 2 axis logic mean? I mean, we will see an example in 2 slides, but many times that you see the 2 axes, you see that everyone claims that it's in the upper right corner of every single solution. But this makes sense. One axis may be, imagine, simplicity, and the other one may be like a complete, you know, that covers all the functionalities, but it's a very simple solution. This makes a lot of sense, and this should like talk to the solution slide at the beginning. So you claim that solutions so far have been able of being like very simple, but if they were very simple, they couldn't cover all the functionalities. And the other way around. And solutions that cover all the functionalities are not simple at all. So you see that competitors usually like do one or the other, but you are like the novelty of your solution, and that's why we are here. And the innovative component is that for once you are able to do both at the same time. And that's like a very strong message if done well. It's not just like to put two axes and put us on the upper right corner because everyone does. Also, by the way, many times it has the form of a matrix. We check, these competitors do this, but they don't do that. This other competitor does that, but doesn't do this. We do absolutely everything. And these, depending on the product, I would choose like one or the other. If you are like claiming if the number of functionalities is the best, then I would go for the second. And who is your competitor? One that competes for your own market, one that you could lose a contract against. Okay. Or like that the user, if it's a B2C, that like they don't choose you because they choose another one. It's not always easy to define. And we always suggest to include like a paragraph that if it's not enough with the action title, a paragraph with the differentiation and your own competitive advantage. It's not just like we're up there, but like some elaboration. This is, for example, N26, that maybe many of you guys know it, like fintech, smart banking, claims that they have like everything that their competitors can do together, for example. This is like a pretty strong way. That is not matrix nor two axis, but I think it's pretty strong message. And this one from one of our clients, Leux. Leux is actually one of our coolest clients. They are actually like an electric car brand. And, cars usually have like, for the building process, they can be like sustainable or they can be 20th century process. And they are like traditional electrified, like incumbents, or like native electric solutions. So Leux claims that that is like completely native electric, which it is, and their processes are completely sustainable, which, for example, Tesla is way less than that, or that the Chinese electric cars are definitely not caring about them. They don't care about the processes to build the cars, like the manufacturing of the cars that are sustainable or they don't. So we do care about it too. And if you see, there's like other messages over here that that I claim who is in each thing. And we are in ultra desirable and ultra sustainable. You see business model here. This should be actually competitors, and a very strong action title and like some functionalities here. Team. The team, many times we see startups that like write up the name of absolutely everyone there. So like, and we suggest only to put the top management, the C-level usually. So right, like put the profiles of the C-level and then the overall team structure. We will see an example soon, like how many people more or less you have in each department. You should show that you have experience either in the sector or in startups, ideally in both. So if you are like targeting electric car brands, it's like one of the co-founders, and has been working in electric cars for 20 years. The other one has already started several companies. So it's like the experience you want to compare. Maybe something's missing. Maybe you don't have like the perfect CMO for marketing yet. And that's fine. And you can even claim like, we are going to use this round to find a CMO, among other things. And advisors only if they truly contribute to your business, and in any case, smaller. It is a bad sign to me if like the thing that they show the most is like an advisor they have that has less than 1% of the cap data. It's like, all right, he's a big guy, but he's not gonna spend like the day-to-day in your company. This is Dropbox. Pretty funny, by the way, that they didn't work on like the best picture. But they say, something pretty strong. First line of code at age 6, first startup gig at age 14, founded online SAT prep. So like the exams to be prepared for the university in the US, etc. After multiple perfect scores. And this other guy, director of MIT program competition per experience at Google. right? The picture is not very good, but this is convincing, in my opinion. And this is a client of us, FOSA Systems, that they actually work on microsatellites and picosatellites. They are sent many, whatever, and they say 18 employees, nationalities, gender balance, and they're the spotting top talent. So they mention important things about the team. For example, the 18 employees and 5 nationalities, in my opinion, already show like important information about the company. But they claim that Julian is actually like 20 years old, and he has like amazing things, and he's 30 under 30, Forbes 30 under 30, and so on. And also Vicente, a master space engineer, Pegasus satellites, etc. We're running a little out of time, so I'll try to be quick in these last slides. I think we are 2 or 3. The financials. For a very early stage startup, no one will take them too seriously. We already mentioned that in the previous webinar. But they are going to judge you as an entrepreneur, and they want to relate with the numbers and the potential of the business. And that is truly important. So it should be simple, maybe just like a table or a chart, but essentially they need to think like, what do I need to believe? You know, something that I can relate to. So actually the following examples are pretty good. Like, you know, how many hotel nights do you need to sell? How many trips do you need to sell to get where for Airbnb? Like, you know, in 3 years, we're going to be having like 1,000 trips per month, and that will give us like revenues of 30 million. Like, okay, 1,000 trips per month probably like looks reasonable in 3 years, and the evolution is not too ambitious. And then like a 30 million per year revenue would be amazing in 3 years, something like that. Traction, if we have any past already, you know, we should like show some numbers, and we always have some, like even like clients that are interested, or like, you know, users that you have, even if they don't pay so far, but you do have some numbers from the past that it's important for the investor to know where we are by today, not just promises, and the use of explanatory paragraphs if needed. So this is, I forgot, but this was like a pretty important SaaS business. I don't know if it's Shopify as well. Growing revenue 40% month on month, pretty strong message. And here you can see like, you know, new companies that they have been acquiring, new paying companies they have been acquiring, transaction revenue, subscription revenue. This is their traction. And if it's the next slide, probably it's about the future, then I will believe if you claim that in the future are going to be making 1,000 new companies per month in 2 years. I see the traction. I see that it could make sense. And then I see how the numbers could add up and get to a great business. Another one that we did also with Leux is like in 5 years, we're going to be here, a lot of revenue in this case. And, you know, we need to deliver this many cars to get there. And it's very simple, like a very simple P&L. And cars delivered. By the way, it depends on the business. If you're claiming that you're going to sell cars, you will need a lot of investment. So you better show the whole P&L, and it's a low margin business, and so on. In some others, you don't need to go to everything. Second to last, round size and use of funds. This is like, okay, why were we here? It needs to be very clear, like the action title. We are raising this amount of money to achieve this. Valuation, to include it or not. I've seen a lot of debate, and honestly, this is not somewhere where we have a strong opinion. I'd rather say no, not to put the valuation, because in my opinion, it's something that if you don't write, you are not gonna miss a call from the investor. You know, they are not gonna say like, I'm not gonna have a call with this guy because they didn't write the valuation. But the other way around, it can happen. Oh, the valuation is too high, forget it. And the valuation is usually up for discussion until the end. You should raise enough to have like reasonable runway and show we're raising this to cover the next 18 months and already plan something about the future rounds. Investors want to know that there will be future rounds because they live on that. So it's very good, like to say, with this amount of money, I'm going to achieve this in 18 months and then raise a Series B where we would go international to 5 new countries, for example. Here we see this is eShares. This is what later I think they changed their name to Carter. raising 6 to 8 million. It's fine that you give a range. Series A to converge private market to achieve, the base camp to take companies public. We will be ready in the private market, and therefore afterwards we will do the IPOs. Actually, they cover like competitors will focus on this, we will focus on this. And this is from one of our clients, Noventos. We have an X million investment opportunity for so many months to consolidate sales and kick off our international growth strategy. And these are going to be the use of funds and the convertible notes and the valuation, which will be the discount. And the back cover, nothing too important, just like contact data. And this is a little more important. I mentioned it before. If you're going to be presenting the slides, it's better to do it like very short and then a long appendix, such that if they ask you, but hold on, like what type of clients you're going to have in the coming years, you can say like, okay, we go to that slide in the appendix. But if you're going to send it, better than the slides are a little more explanatory, but that they don't open a PDF with 60 pages. It's a little counterintuitive, in my opinion, that if you're going to present it, it's longer, the appendix, and the other way around. Like e-shares, thanks, the address, and that's it. It's a quick smile, one of our clients, number, email, and they do, as you may have guessed, they are competitors to Invisalign and this kind of stuff. So, any questions? I went like a little beyond time, but if there's like any questions in the chat or like unmuting your microphone, that's fine as well. All right. So, therefore, I will tell you, well, first, if you want the slides, feel free to send me an email to jaime@tscfo.com. Well, you will have the video available in YouTube and on the webinar series landing page. And yeah, and then I will see you next week, June 1st, same time, 3 to 4. And now it's going to be on startup reporting in 1 hour. This is also like a very sensitive topic because many times is one of the biggest needs of our clients when they hire us, that they need to prepare professional reporting for investors. So we'll be here 3 to 4. We will also post it in YouTube as in the next 6 weeks as well. Christina wrote like, can I write my email here? Yes. Here it is. Jaime@tscfo, like the startup CFO.com. Hold on. I wrote it just in private. Let me write it in public. Okay. Here it is. So, perfect. It's been great. Thank you very much for attendance. Again, feel free to share as well the list of webinars or like find them in YouTube in the coming weeks. Right. So thank you very much and hope to see you soon in the next webinars. Goodbye to everyone.